power, and I can plug it in. So I'll run one of the videos, and it's like for this room, it's plenty loud enough. For a gym, it's actually loud enough. I mean, if not,
wow.
Well, you tell me. All right, so I'm watching. You're watching technology in action. It's like laws and sausages. I want to see how they're made. Hang on. Okay. We'll look at her. See how Hearn's holding it for us. Hearn, how are you?
When the book of your life is written, good look like. When the say you made a difference, when you really want to make a difference, you have the ability.
That's out of this. That's fine.
That through sports, they're going to
I can live with that.
life. How you handle these young players,
now,
I think is very, very.
I didn't worry about some crazy USB out of here. I didn't worry about powering it. I didn't worry about anything. And for, I'd say, a smallish to a mediumish setting, this is fine. Okay? I keep better speakers in my car too, just in case. But this is the go-to, especially on the road. So I can throw this in the suitcase on the road, just tuck it in there. It's pretty good. Okay? So that's not too bad. It's called Jambox. It's way overpriced, but for what I wanted, it was perfect. It also has it works as a speakerphone in your car. I don't know why. So that's kind of cool. So that's what I do for audio. So those are the technical parts. Now I got to get video out and I got to get audio. I have notes here, by the way. See, I prepared, right? I prepared, even though I didn't know what I was going to prepare. I tend to bring, and I'm not going to use it today, but I'll show it to you. I mean, and you all have this. You get the slide remote, the little cheese. And you know what? With this kind of stuff, get the cheapest thing out there. They all do the same thing. There's one for like $10, there's one for $50. They do the same thing. So you get the little thing to click forward in the slides. When I present, I get a little fired up sometimes. Yeah, right. I'm up and around. He's making fun of me over here. He's seen me too much. He's got all the shtick down. The one thing I don't do, but I saw one of the school I'm at now. We had a police officer come present to the kids. He does the DARE program, the drug program. He was really good. And I'm writing presentation. I watch presenters now because I want to steal their stuff, right? I want to be better every time. And I hate using a microphone. But he did such a great job with it. He had just this little lavalier mic that had like a wireless connection to a little speaker, and it was awesome, and it was really great for him. Now, I did want to talk about that as technology, but then a kind of a non-technology thing too, especially for the new trainers. Your voice is a big deal in these things. So it's easy to be in this room and be loud. Now, for those of us who we're primarily basketball or soccer coaches, maybe we've kind of conditioned our voice a certain way. For those of us who weren't, maybe not. I would actually, kind of my dark past is, I actually studied voice. So, there's a lot of vocal production stuff that I wind up using as a trainer. And your voice is really gold as a trainer. It's a big deal. And you don't want to, if you've ever had that situation, I'm sure, those who are doing this a while, where you're a little sick and you can't project and that kind of thing. If you ever want, and it's not the matter for this particular topic, but if you ever want to talk about some things you can do for healthy voice, some ways that you can learn to project in a healthy way. If you ever had a presentation where you were a little sick and then after the presentation you scratched, right? It means you weren't projecting in a healthy way. So your voice is a big deal. You can use technology to augment that if you want. I never do. I prefer not to, but I kind of was changed my mind about it when I saw this police officer with the DARE presentation do such a great job with it, and it really was effective. So I wanted to jump on that. Okay. Anything on the physical presentations? I mean, questions, comments, funny stories? Okay. PowerPoints. PowerPoint, we kind of live and die by these PowerPoints. And Ruben and the PCA folks have done this amazing job of improving these PowerPoints. Those of us who know them from back in the day, they were really effective because they were black on white. I know some of us complain a little bit when we lost black on white because it's harder to see this a little bit. But they did such a great job when they moved to the new DGC1 and said, well, we're going to give you options where you go on the PowerPoint. Okay, and once you get your head around that, it's a big deal. Does anybody, before I even get started on this, any comments on the new PowerPoints, or they're not new anymore, but on how they work or troubles you've had, or they've been a piece of cake for you? If you're better off than me if they were. The first time I looked at back when they first changed DGC1, I looked at it and I go, what in the world is this? I have no idea. So it took me a little bit to get my head around. And anybody have any of those problems with it or care about it either way? Or questions about the PowerPoint?
I don't want to jump maybe what you're going to talk about.
No,
I
go.
can tell you the number one thing I get all the time is I can't get the videos to print.
Yep, and we're going to go over that. I get that. We were getting that, 2 TIs ago in the, what is it, the Noetic Center, like the Space Center, or whatever it was.
That was gremlins, but yeah.
But yeah.
So you're going to answer that question, so no one calls.
That's a great one. The videos can't play. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say is this, and I say it at the risk of sounding just completely didactic, but
Can you explain what didactic means?
sorry, being a guy who uses words.
I don't want to be it.
No,
Or maybe I do.
you're like Ali, right?
Good or bad.
That's like the Muhammad Ali with the truculent, right? Whatever it is, if it's good, I'm that. To be like preachy or whatever, it means to teach.
Teaching.
I think.
I can ask Siri.
Teacher, boring and
Can
teaching.
ask Siri what didactic means? Good call.
Lecturing.
Another use of technology. And then I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, one thing I would say is practice. So you go home, and what I tend to do is I tend to, before I leave for the presentation, if I have time, so if I'm either at school or at home, and I'm supposed to do schoolwork, but I'm getting ready for my presentation, so that's more important. I'll kind of run through it on my laptop, and like you saw here today, leave it open. For me, that's a big deal. I leave stuff open on my laptop so that when I come in, and we did this down at IADA the other day, and hopefully, was I a little prepared or not? Absolutely. Okay. And I just go and boom, I'm right there. And if I want, like, I'll show you some other files I use sometimes that if I'm doing, I don't do DGC too much anymore because there's not as much call for it. But when I was doing it, there's some files I have to relate to it. So I'll have everything I'm going to use in the presentation open, and when it comes to doing the videos, and I'll show you how to make it work when it's not, but when it comes to doing it, I'll go through a couple of those slides in the deck to make sure that it's working, because I have the same problem. I have the very same problem. I have the problem, I don't know if you've ever had this, where you click on the buttons, it doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to save yourself from some of that stuff, all right, in the PowerPoint. Any other PowerPoint comments before I move on the PowerPoint here a little bit?
Okay. Can I just jump in?
Yeah, of course.
And you have sort of said it, but here's what I get a lot is people put stuff on a flash drive, and then they take the flash drive, and they put it into the school computer that's hooked up to the LCD, and then they don't plug it.
Flash drives are the handiwork of Satan. And I'm going to tell you, never ever use a flash drive again in life for anything you ever do. Okay? And I'll explain why, and Ruben's already onto it, because I finally conned Ruben into using Dropbox. We're going to talk about Dropbox a little bit. But Dropbox is your answer for flash drives. The answer, I would say that more than anything, use your laptop, unless you absolutely can't use your laptop.
So Joe, even with that though, sometimes I've used my laptop, I've gone through to make sure everything plays.
Yep.
And Herm Edwards does not play at the end of the workshop. So I'll go through it while I'm there setting up. Herm Edwards plays, and when I get through the whole workshop, yes. He's frozen on the screen. I have to say, well, here's what Herm Edwards would say, and hear from Herm Edwards. So.
At that point, Joe, if that were to happen, and we're in the same area here, I'd love to look at your laptop and try.
Yeah, because I don't know exactly why it happens. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't.
And that's why I tend to do it first. I would also say, when you're testing it, if you have a chance to test it on the site, test it with the projector. Because one of the things that happens when you plug this in, you might have seen it on mine, is the projector, once you're projecting out, changes your video settings.
Yeah.
That's why the icons get all squirrely like that. That's a great point. So I would try it with the projector and see. The main thing with getting I'll get back to your thing in 1 second.